that yeah, plays out.
Yeah, certainly. It's not to be sniffed at, is it? We've got an intermediate sprints competition along the way, as you say, and that's for a €3,000 first prize and €1,000 at each of the three intermediate sprints. Chantal Black could well be interested in that, but Balls Dolmans may well have their eyes on the main prize. Kirsten Wild, well, what a competitor she's been over the years. Some might say in the twilight of her career, but I wouldn't be the one to say it to her because she's absolutely flying this year. String of world track titles taken indeed on home soil in Appledorn. Chloe Hosking has been to the fore for Ali Cipollini in recent years. A couple of 11th place finishes in this event. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Corinne Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because off on a break, and the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can, you know, the rest. Aaron Rivera looks very relaxed, doesn't she? She's coming off a bit of a break, so it'll be interesting to see whether she's able to step back up to top standard, because often a break can. As well from the Mitchelton Scott squad with a great podium finish indeed, alongside Ashley Moolman-Pasio for so much of that week in Italy just over a week ago. And they have a different agenda today. Christine Majerus is always so visible in that national champions jersey of Luxembourg. She's primarily a domestique, but she's often had some strong results, and she's a pretty good finisher and has indeed scored strong results in Britain in the past in the in the Women's Tour.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't count her out. I mean, Bowles have got some great cars to play, and you just don't know how the race will pan out. I mean, yeah, they've had a travel day yesterday. Some of the riders might not be feeling great, so I think they've got a lot of options.
Yeah, Amelia Dideriksen 7th in this equivalent event in 2017, the former World Road Race champion. But Amy Peters, Chantal Black, Christine Majeres, all capable of delivering a strong result. And it could well be that Bowles Dolmans make a decision on the road when they're out there based on how the riders feel. It can often be a case of just making that decision and just going for it. Wow, look at the way the riders racing through a river of dry leaves there. It's the leaves have been whipped across this course. I don't think it's going to be much of a factor, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are one or two leaves in jockey wheels right now and making their way through rear derailleurs, but shouldn't be too much of an issue for them. Up towards the top of the course, heading around Trafalgar Square. It really is a beautiful sight, isn't it? A beautiful venue, a beautiful place to put a bike race. These are iconic elements of what is a world-famous city, and London really is shown in all its glory.
Definitely. I mean, this just stays in my memory. The first year I competed in this race, sprinting up the Mall, Marianne Vos was in her World Champions jersey, and I could just see Buckingham Palace in the background, and I think, yeah, it's especially for the British riders, it's such a great race to be a part of, and especially with all the crowds that come out, and yeah, just where it is in London as well, it's just really, really special.
Well, the riders are being encouraged to perhaps lower the tempo a little bit, but the natural urge to try and work your way up the outside and get yourself into a prime and perfect position for the beginning of this race means that riders are starting to just spill around the outside of the race director's car, and that's everybody wants to pick. Primarily a domestique, but she's often had some strong results, and she's a pretty good finisher and has indeed scored strong results in Britain in the past in the Women's Tour.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't count her out. I mean, Bowles have got some great cars to play, and you just don't know how the race will pan out. I mean, yeah, they've had a travel day yesterday. Some of the riders might not be feeling great, so I think they've got a lot of options.
Yeah, Amelia Dideriksen 7th in this equivalent event in 2017, the former World Road Race champion. But Amy Peters, Chantal Black, Christine Majeres, all capable of delivering a strong result. And it could well be that Bowles Dolmans make a decision on the road when they're out there based on how the riders feel. Case of just making that decision and just going for it. Wow, look at the way the riders racing through a river of dry leaves there. It's the leaves have been whipped across this course. I don't think it's going to be much of a factor, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are one or two leaves in jockey wheels right now and making their way through rear derailleurs, but shouldn't be too much of an issue for them. Up towards the top of the course, heading around Trafalgar Square. It really is a beautiful sight, isn't it? A beautiful venue, a beautiful place to put a bike race. These are iconic elements of what is a world-famous city, and London really is shown in all its glory.
Definitely. I mean, this just stays in my memory. The first year I competed in this race, sprinting up the Mall, Marianne Vos was in her World Champions jersey, and I could just see Buckingham Palace in the background, and I think, yeah, it's especially for the British riders, it's such a great race to be a part of, and especially with all the crowds that come out, and yeah, just where it is in London as well, it's just really, really special.
Well, the riders are being encouraged to perhaps lower the tempo a little bit, but the natural urge to try and work your way up the outside and get yourself into a prime and perfect position for the beginning of this race means that riders are starting to just spill around the outside of the race director's car, and that's everybody wants to pinch a couple of millimeters here and there. Spratt on the left is primarily a domestique, but she's often had some strong results, and she's a pretty good finisher and has indeed scored strong results in Britain in the past in the Women's Tour.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't count her out. I mean, Bowles have got some great cars to play, and you just don't know how the race will pan out. I mean, yeah, they've had a travel day yesterday. Some of the riders might not be feeling great, so I think they've got a lot of options.
Yeah, Amelia Dideriksen 7th in this equivalent event in 2017, the former World Road Race champion. But Amy Peters, Chantal Black, Christine Majeres, all capable of delivering a strong result. And it could well be that Bowles Dolmans make a decision on the road when they're out there based on how the riders feel. It can often be a case of of just making that decision and just going for it. Wow, look at the way the riders racing through a river of dry leaves there. It's the leaves have been whipped across this course. I don't think it's going to be much of a factor, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are one or two leaves in jockey wheels right now and making their way through rear derailleurs, but shouldn't be too much of an issue for them. Up towards the top of the course, heading around Trafalgar Square. It really is a beautiful sight, isn't it? A beautiful venue, a beautiful place to put a bike race. These are iconic elements of what is a world-famous city, and London really is shown in all its glory.
Definitely. I mean, this just stays in my memory. The first year I competed in this race, sprinting up the Mall, Marianne Vos was in her World Champions jersey, and I could just see Buckingham Palace in the background, and I think, yeah, it's especially for the British riders, it's such a great race to be a part of, and especially with all the crowds that come out, and yeah, just where it is in London as well, it's just really, really special.
Well, the riders are being encouraged to perhaps lower the tempo a little bit, but the natural urge to try and work your way up the outside and get yourself into a prime and perfect position for the beginning of this race means that riders are starting to just spill around the outside of the race director's car, and that's everybody wants to pinch a couple of millimeters here and there. Spratt on the left certainly knows exactly what's required. WNT primarily a domestique, but she's often had some strong results, and she's a pretty good finisher and has indeed scored strong results in Britain in the past in the Women's Tour.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't count her out. I mean, Bowles have got some great cars to play, and you just don't know how the race will pan out. I mean, yeah, they've had a travel day yesterday. Some of the riders might not be feeling great, so I think they've got a lot of options.
Yeah, Amelia Dideriksen 7th in this equivalent event in 2017, the former world road race champion, but Amy Peters, Chantal Black, Christine Majerus, all capable of delivering a strong result, and it could well be that Bowles Dolmans make a decision on the road when they're out there based on how the riders feel. It can often be a case of just making that decision and just going for it. Wow, look at the way the riders racing through a river of dry leaves there. It's the leaves have been whipped across this course. I don't think it's going to be much of a factor, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are one or two leaves in jockey wheels right now and making their way through rear derailleurs, but shouldn't be too much of an issue for them. Up towards the top of the course, heading around Trafalgar Square. It really is a beautiful sight, isn't it? A beautiful venue, a beautiful place to put a bike race. These are iconic elements of what is a world-famous city, and London really is shown in all its glory.
Definitely. I mean, this just stays in my memory. The first year I competed in this race, sprinting up the Mall, Marianne Vos was in her World Champions jersey, and I could just see Buckingham Palace in the background, and I think, yeah, it's especially for the British riders, it's such a great race to be a part of, and especially with all the crowds that come out, and yeah, just where it is in London as well, it's just really, really special.
Well, the riders are being encouraged to perhaps lower the tempo a little bit, but the natural urge to try and work your way up the outside and get yourself into a prime and perfect position for the beginning of this race means that riders are starting to just spill around the outside of the race director's car, and that's everybody wants to pinch a couple of millimeters here and there. Spratt on the left certainly knows exactly what's required. WNT squad as well, also with 5 riders on duty. Badegruber, Teutenberg, primarily a domestique, but she's often had some strong results, and she's a pretty good finisher and has indeed scored strong results in Britain in the past in the Women's Tour.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't count her out. I mean, Bowles have got some great cars to play, and you just don't know how the race will pan out. I mean, yeah, they've had a travel day yesterday. Some of the riders might not be feeling great, so I think they've got a lot of options.
Yeah, Amelia Dideriksen 7th in this equivalent event in 2017, the former world road race champion, but Amy Peters, Chantal Black, Christine Majerus, all capable of delivering a strong result, and it could well be that Bowles Dolmans make a decision on the road when they're out there based on how the riders feel. It can often be a case of just making that decision and just going for it. Wow, look at the way the riders racing through a river of dry leaves there. It's the The leaves have been whipped across this course. I don't think it's going to be much of a factor, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are one or two leaves in jockey wheels right now and making their way through rear derailleurs, but shouldn't be too much of an issue for them. Up towards the top of the course, heading around Trafalgar Square. It really is a beautiful sight, isn't it? A beautiful venue, a beautiful place to put a bike race. These are iconic elements of what is a world-famous city, and London really is shown in all its glory.
Definitely. I mean, this just stays in my memory. The first year I competed in this race, sprinting up the Mall, Marianne Vos was in her World Champions jersey, and I could just see Buckingham Palace in the background, and I think, yeah, it's especially for the British riders, it's such a great race to be a part of, and especially with all the crowds that come out, and yeah, just where it is in London as well, it's just really, really special.
Well, the riders are being encouraged to perhaps lower the tempo a little bit, but the natural urge to try and work your way up the outside and get yourself into a prime and perfect position for the beginning of this race means that riders are starting to just spill around the outside of the race director's car, and that's everybody wants to pinch a couple of millimeters here and there. Sprat on the left certainly knows exactly what's required. WNT squad as well, also with 5 riders on duty. Badegruber, Teutenberg, it's a familiar name to many fans of women's road race cycling over the years. Leah Linz, Teutenberg indeed, and Gabrielle Pilot-Fortin, the Canadian rider. Renanda Spoor, and Afka Sood is a developing talent, and a very interesting talent indeed, an individual time trial rider of some ability that could well be tempted to try her luck off the front in the early stages. Ashley Moore, primarily a domestique, but she's often had some strong results, and she's a pretty good finisher and has indeed scored strong results in Britain in the past in the Women's Tour.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't count her out. I mean, Bowles have got some great cars to play, and you just don't know how the race will pan out. I mean, yeah, they've had a travel day yesterday. Some of the riders might not be feeling great, so I think they've got a lot of options. Yeah,
Amelia Dideriksen 7th in this equivalent event in 2017, the former World Road Race champion, but Amy Peters, Chantal Black, Christine Majerus, all capable of delivering a strong result, and it could well be that Bowles Dolmans make a decision on the road when they're out there based on how the riders feel. It can often be a case of just making that decision and just going for it. Wow, look at the way the riders racing through a river of dry leaves there. The leaves have been whipped across this course. I don't think it's going to be much of a factor, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are one or two leaves in jockey wheels right now and making their way through rear derailleurs, but shouldn't be too much of an issue for them. Up towards the top of the course, heading around Trafalgar Square. It really is a beautiful sight, isn't it? A beautiful venue, a beautiful place to put a bike race. These are iconic elements of what is a world-famous city, and London really is shown in all its glory.
Definitely. I mean, this just stays in my memory. The first year I competed in this race, sprinting up the Mall, Marianne Vos was in her World Champions jersey, and I could just see Buckingham Palace in the background, and I think, yeah, it's especially for the British riders, it's such a great race to be a part of, and especially with all the crowds that come out, and yeah, just where it is in London as well, it's just really, really special.
Well, the riders are being encouraged to perhaps lower the tempo a little bit, but the natural urge to try and work your way up the outside and get yourself into a prime and perfect position for the beginning of this race means that riders are starting to just spill around the outside of the race director's car, and that's everybody wants to pinch a couple of millimeters here and there. Sprat on the left certainly knows exactly what's required. WNT squad as well, also with 5 riders on duty. Badegruber, Teutenberg, it's a familiar name to many fans of women's road race cycling over the years. Leah Linz, Teutenberg indeed, and Gabrielle Pilot-Fortin, the Canadian rider. Renanda Spoor, and Afka Sood is a developing talent, and a very interesting talent indeed, an individual time trial rider of some ability that could well be tempted to try her luck off the front in the early stages. Ashley Moolman-Passio just wants to make herself a little bit of room, but everybody wants to get to the front. It's not just to get on telly. This is about trying to get prime position, because the attacks are going to come hot and heavy, and sometimes I often think that the neutralised section, especially a neutralised lap of a course like this, only serves to heighten the tension a little bit, and a lot of riders pretty anxious to make it up there. Not everyone wants to get up there, though. We've got lots of riders that are just happy to trundle along. That's Shannon Malseed, the Australian road race champion, at the back, and content to be there, I think, for the meantime. Not absolutely everyone wants to get up there.
See the newly crowned Italian Derny race champion, Raquel, on the front there for Wiggle High Five. She must be on good form if she's doing well on the track, so it'll be a good race for her today. She'll be able to respond well to the quick accelerations out the corners.
Yeah, the Italian track program really is bringing through some very strong talent at the moment, including Raquel Barbieri of the Wiggle High Five squad. Plenty of cheers of appreciation as the riders make their way around Trafalgar Square. 12 full laps from now, plus the run through to the line from here, and this will be much more intense. The riders through Admiralty Arch, exiting Trafalgar Square, and now we have the long drag strip down to the line, and it's a long way. You can see the finish line for a long time.
Yeah, you can. It definitely leads to people going too early in the sprint, and yeah, on a day like today when the wind's so strong, I think it's going to catch some people out in the finish. I really do.
Everyone wants to time the start. It's like a yachting race, isn't it? It's about trying to win the start as much as win the finish. But how much of a difference is it going to make? The flag's coming in very shortly. We're going to get this Prudential Ride London Classic underway. Now we're racing, and now it matters. A quick reminder, we've got intermediate sprints along the way at the end of laps 3, 6 and 9. They pay €1,000 for the first rider over the line in each of those, and €3,000 for the sprints classification. It's going to be of interest to all of the riders in here. Those that fancy their chances of going for the overall race glory, well, might perhaps prefer to keep their powder dry. That hasn't always been the case, though. Certainly Corin Rivera last year used the intermediate sprints to just tune up her lead-out train and to make sure they were all organised, so they had more than one opportunity to get it absolutely right before they came to the big one.
Yeah, definitely, and I think if a lead sprinter is not 100% sure on their form, it's always a good chance to just go for it and see how the legs are feeling, because you don't really know until you do open your sprint. So yeah, it's always a good opportunity for them to try it out.
Yeah, and those intermediate sprints, of course, it's not compulsory to sprint for them, so we're going to see a lot of riders, I think, going to try their chances off the front to see can they survive through to take an intermediate sprint or two. There's Buckingham Palace in all its glory. Its principal and prime resident is at home, I believe, at the moment. I wonder if she's looking out to see these riders. The very best women cyclists in the world, certainly the very best sprinters, are about to do battle, and they're racing. Well, they're up to proper full racing speed at the moment. The Cervella Bigler squad, led by Ashley Moolman-Passio on the left-hand side of shot in the white jersey with the blue shorts, and she's got the Finnish National Road Race champion. Lotta Lepisto is sitting comfortably and safely on her wheel, and that's as much about making sure you're staying out of trouble in the early stages, because there are a lot of nervous riders in there.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, if you're on the inside of these corners, you really come in really slow into them, so yeah, it's definitely important to be at the front. And I think most of the teams in their briefings this morning would have been told, you know, how important it is to be at the front, even more than usual today.
Ballstalman as well, also well represented at the front, courtesy of Christine Majerus. The Canyon SRAM squad, remember Alice Barnes is in pretty good form at the moment, and she scored a nice 10th place finish in this event a couple of years ago. Meanwhile, down at the back, worrying moment really for Chanel Mason, the rider from the Army.
I won't put her out of the race just yet. She's not that confident in the peloton, but I think if she ever gets the opportunity to get around, she'll be straight off the front. She's one of those riders, so yeah, I think, yeah, she'll still be there. She'll still be there at the end of the race, if not off the front. Yeah, she's just a couple of bike lengths off the back, and plenty of aerodynamic wash there, plenty of wake for her to cycle into, so no real drama. And as you say, as this peloton starts to stretch thin, if she's got the legs, she'll make her way up. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to see the Story Racing squad getting involved in the attacks throughout this event. Team Sunweb, though, they own the title. They have the champion. And they've got two of the best sprinters in the world in Corin Rivera and indeed Leah Kirchmann, who was part of a dominant, at least in the first part of the Giro Rosa. They won the team time trial and then led the race. They passed the pink jersey around between them for the first few days, including for Leah Kirchmann. She was sprinting well. And third in this event in 2016. And what a great string to your bow to have a rider of that quality supporting Corin Rivera this afternoon. Moolman Pasio just has to step out of the way to allow Alison Jackson, the Canadian rider with Team Tibco, Silicon Valley. And the Team Tibco squad don't compete all that regularly in Europe, but they've got some very strong riders in their roster. Yeah, definitely. I mean, they always hold their own. Like you see that in the Santos Women's Tour at the start of the season, they're always active in those races, and I think, yeah, they just fit into the peloton in Europe perfectly. And of course, the US racing, this is their bread and butter, isn't it? They love town, city centre racing, and it's very much what they're bred for. Exactly. Shorter, more intense races they're used to, so this will, yeah, fit them down to a T. We're on the first lap and still waiting for the first substantial attack, but I can tell you it's a fairly hectic pace that's being set on the front of the peloton, and all the leading and significant teams want to try and take control of this. The High-Tech Products Berg Sport squad have Nina Kessler second here in London in 2016, and Thea Thorsen as well as a strong rider for them, the Norwegian, predominantly Norwegian lineup. They've got the Dutch rider Nina Kessler and the German Charlotte Becker among their number. You can see Micah Bogard at the front there. She's always active at the start of the races. She's commonly in the first move of the day as Micah. So yeah, must be feeling something happening if she's at the front there. So we wait for the first significant move. Riders starting to washing machine churn their way around the outside, but as often happens, nobody wants to go right to the very, very front. Ale Cipollini have a couple of very strong options. They've got Chloe Hosking, who's 11th in the last two editions of this event. They also have Marta Bastianelli, the former World Road Race champion, the Italian rider, who's resurgent, I think, this year. She's taken 6 strong victories at all terrain, and it really has been a very strong year. She didn't manage to take a stage victory at her home national tour, the Giro Rosa, but she did get up with top 4 positions in a couple of sprints along the way. So it'll be interesting to see whether they go for Hosking or decide to go for Marta Bastianelli. But the Italian-based Ale Cipollini squad in those day-glow yellow jerseys will certainly be a squad to look out for. They're always involved in the lead-outs, don't always get to pull it off, but they tend to get control of the peloton in the late stages of the lead-out, maybe up until the final kilometre, but can they own it all the way to the line? That's the question. They're a really strong sprint team, and I think it definitely helps sending 2 riders that could potentially win the race. And I think, yeah, once you've got a rider that can win the race leading you out, then you're in a good position. And I think especially coming into this finish, it's going to be very tight, and there's going to be a lot of nervous riders. So it's great to have, yeah, 2 sprinters there fighting for their position and be able to hold their own. Ashley Moolman-Pasio still has control of the front of the peloton. She might be a whiz uphill, but she's not too bad on a flat road either. Ale Cipollini now go to the front. The Canyon SRAM squad, as we've mentioned. Alice Barnes, fine sprinter, but they've got options. They've got different options. They've got Trixie Warwick, who is evergreen time trial star, isn't she? Great victory at the time trial in the Bene Tour just last week, the Bene Ladies Tour.
Indeed, Lisa Klein as well did a fantastic performance. She was second in that time trial, second overall in that event. So those riders can generate particularly big watts.
Definitely, and also Tiff Cromwell we saw moving to the front there. She's amazing around corners, and she's always one to go full gas into a crosswind. So she's a great rider to have, and I think you can see them talking on the radio now, moving to the front.
Well, it is the imposing figure of Anna Plichter that goes to the front for the Bowles Dolman squad. Try and get control of this one. Meanwhile, first significant side of the Wowdeals Pro Cycling team, in the green. Representing the interests of Marianne Vos was Anuska Koster, who herself is a very fast finisher, got 7th in 2016, so Koster could be minded to see what she can do. It's an all-Dutch lineup with the exception of Danny Rowe, who, as Danny King, has scored strong results in this event in the past. And Danny Rowe's on fine form this year. Great second-place finish in Yorkshire earlier this year. So she's certainly a rider to contend with, and a great asset to the Wowdeals Pro Cycling squad on behalf of Marianne Vos. And it's her teammate Anuska Koster is just slotted into second place at the moment. Still waiting for the first significant attack, but attacking is not the work of a moment, because these riders are able to set a tempo on the front of the peloton that prevents those attacks.
Yeah, definitely, and I think here Lotte Lepisto's team, Cervelo Bigler, will be doing that, and I think they'll want to minimise the work they have to do on the front by setting a high tempo, and I think they've got the power to do that. So looks like Mitchelton Scott also are sending their riders at the front to do the same thing.
Yeah, with just 58 kilometres remaining of the 64, of course it's a short race, so the concept we so often see in road racing of an early break forming and the teams behind deciding to chase it, work it out exactly how much gap they're going to give them, works slightly differently when we're that close to the finish. Yeah,
definitely. If any group goes up the road, then it's going to be very hard to bring it back, because it's such a fast race, and especially with the corners, a small breakaway can corner a lot faster than the bunch can. So yeah, I think the sprint teams today will be wanting to keep the tempo high so nothing can get away.
First side of the front of the FDJ squad, FDJ Nouvelle Aquitaine Futurist Scope, to give them their full title, but we won't manage all of that in the sprint. If Rosanne Fournier is going for glory, perhaps Lauren Kitchen might find an opportunity for her, and it's not going to be a perfect day out for everyone, so it looks like the pace might be a little bit intense, or perhaps we could have a technical issue there for one of the Ale Cipollini riders.
Yeah, that's Caroline Swinkle. She's my age, so she's quite a young rider, so yeah, I wonder what's happened to her.
Yeah, that'd be unusual. Certainly you would expect that she'd be able to follow the pace at this. Yeah, I mean, it is pretty intense. It's difficult to make an attack, but it should be possible to follow in the wheels.
Yeah, definitely. But also in this race, it's different because there's not a race convoy, so we don't have, we don't have the access to the spare wheels and spare bike. So if anything happens, you've got to, give the lead rider your bike and make your way to the pits.
So still no significant attack has formed at the front. The leading teams, the teams with super strong sprinters, want to control this one and just want to set an intense pace that will prevent those attacks. But can they manage to do it for what is effectively one very long final? Story Racing still represented by Chanel Mason at the back. They've got one or two riders trying to make their way to the front as well. Mason could be playing a canny game here, especially as there's so much control going on at the front. It could well be well worth your while just riding in the wake of the other riders, waiting until those riders at the front perhaps start to lose a little bit of their vim and vigour. Well, it could be a while happening, though.
Yeah, I think we'll see a bit of a shake-up when the sprint happens, because it'll either, I think with this wind as well, there could be a chance a few riders will slip away after the sprint. If not, there might be a lull in pace, where then, we'll see the breakaways happening.
First sprint comes at the end of lap 3, and riders are feeling the pace a little bit towards the back of the peloton. Make no bones about it, and be in no doubt, this is certainly a pretty intense pace at the moment. Very top riders won't have any difficulty with it, but others might perhaps be just feeling the intensity a little bit. Danny Rowe goes to the front, wants to try and maintain a position at the very front as she heads up towards Trafalgar Square. and has control at the head of the race. Wow Deal's squad have been such an impressive team at the front. That was at the back there just a moment ago. That was Anna Badegruber, the Austrian WNT Rotor Pro Cycling team. And that little injection of pace from the likes of Chantal Black and now Danny Rowe on the front of the peloton has served to stretch it thin. You know, the road is as wide as it gets on this course right now, but took a little while before riders were able to make their way up and around, but now we're starting to see that circulation of riders, and nobody's able to really spend any length of time on the front. That would suggest it's a pretty intense pace.
Yeah, definitely. If a breakaway gets away, it's going to be hard for a team to commit to chasing on the front because they're going to have to expend so much energy in this wind today.
Yeah, small teams as well, and that's, I mean, that's something about women's cycling that always, I think, makes it sometimes more entertaining than men's racing, isn't it? I mean, the races tend to be that much shorter. I mean, it can be a controversial topic. I don't know how you feel about it. Should the races be longer? Are you comfortable with road races that are rarely more than 120, 130 kilometres? Or would you prefer to see longer events?
I mean, yeah, it would be nice to have some longer races thrown in there, but I think at the point where we're at, it's great. Like, it has increased already to 160 kilometres after a few years of being a bit lower. So, yeah, I think it is good where it's at, and like you see, it's such an exciting race all the time. So, yeah, we have the shorter time, but also it does create some sort of lull, and, yeah, the teams don't really want to let breakaways get away because it is shorter, so we don't have that sort of stress-free start to the race that the men have, simply because if a breakaway gets away, then it more than likely would stay away.
And it's tougher to control with the smaller team sizes.
Yeah, definitely, and I think because of women's cycling sort of been developing, I think the difference between the younger riders and the older riders, or the lesser experienced and more experienced riders, is quite high. So yeah, we don't necessarily have the full teams of full strength like the men do.
Right, so the strength and depth, it might not be there. But it is interesting to see that in the men's game they're actually reducing the size of the teams in order to make the racing less predictable, but to a certain extent because of the shorter distance of women's racing and the difficulty in controlling. The plan is to control it from the start and don't let anything up the road. It sounds counterproductive. I tell you what, they're spread wide across the road, all the teams getting into order, and we're heading towards the line one more time. Well, that will say, you can hear that klaxon going. That means there's going to be a sprint next time around, and that means that all the teams are starting to get into lead-out formation already. The klaxon roars to tell the riders there are 10 laps remaining. Next lap round, they're sprinting for a €1,000 first prize, and points and money indeed for the first 5 riders across the line. It's an overall pot as well that will pay no less than €3,000 to the winner. So this is the lap as the teams start to get into formation, and as we've mentioned a little earlier, it does offer them that opportunity as well to just hone that lead out and get the lead out just tuned up nicely.
This is a pinch point in the race that I never enjoyed. It's always one where you can take it without braking when you're in the front of the peloton, but you do get a little bit nervous when you're in the middle and at the back. So yeah, that's always a point where it is a little bit dodgy, but they seem to have got around it fine so far in this race.
Yeah, the rich get richer, don't they? The stronger you are, the easier it is to stay at the front, and the less stressful it is. So it's yeah, it can be difficult. I suppose the flip side of that is the less strong you are, the more challenging things are.
Definitely. I think with this headwind as well, I think we've seen some riders now dropping off the back of the peloton. I think as soon as that elastic snaps, then the headwind, yeah, you feel full effect of it, and you're not getting that shelter from the peloton anymore. And I think, yeah, we've already seen a few riders drop off the back of the peloton because of that.
Yeah, the headwind helps you stay in there a little bit longer, but if you go, you really go. And there's no coming back. Bit of a convoy behind, but nothing like the size of convoy that we're used to from the big road races, so that makes it tough for any rider that hits a little bit of a technical hitch. And dive bombing up the inside, not the work of a moment indeed, that rider.
Goes with her feet down.
Well, there you go. You don't often see that, do you? Well, not a scheduled stop at any rate, but dive bombing up the inside and then coming to a dead stop, foot out. Make your turn. You can maintain momentum around the outside, but then it's a longer road, isn't it? Now Canyon SRAM in control at the front of the peloton. Bowles-Dahlmann as well in the Wow Deal squad. All have riders aplenty and in position. Chloe Hosking wants to get involved as well. And the Canyon SRAM squad have put plenty of riders up here, as indeed of the Wow Deal squad. Bowles-Dahlmann just with that one rider, Christine Majerus, that's monitoring the policing affairs. They'll organise their lead out from a little bit further back, I fear. WMT also trying to get involved in it. It's a strong job being done by Christa Ruffel, the German rider for the Canyon SRAM racing squad. Meanwhile, down the back of the peloton, it's an altogether more frantic affair. And those riders are going to do very well indeed to get back up front. I don't think that BTC City Ljubljana rider is going to make it up in time for the sprint. But tell you what, this one is going to be hotly contested.
Looks like Canyon SRAM have got a full lead out and Sunweb now coming up, so it's going to be, yeah, it's going to be a hotly contested sprint, this one.
Well, how did Team Sunweb work it out? Because we don't see any representation from Corin Rivera at the moment, so perhaps they're going to split their sprinting between two different riders today, one for the intermediate sprints and one for the overall finish.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll see a lot of teams doing that today because there's no bonus for the people sprinting. There's no seconds like there is in some stage races we have. So yeah, they could literally split the team, have one sprint for the intermediate sprints and one sprint for the finish.
Well, Danny Rowe sitting in second place at the moment for the Wow Deal squad. Could she be designated to go for the intermediate sprints? I wouldn't rule it out. Wouldn't expect it though.
No, she had a good sprint at the Nationals. She won the bunch sprint from the that was left. So yeah, she's still got a quick finish on her, has Danny.
Yeah, by contrast, looks like Lotta Lepisto wants to get involved in pretty much everything up the inside, and that was a solid job from Lepisto. Inside, Tiffany Cromwell from the Canyon SRAM racing team with Ashley Moolman-Passio now in control at the front, and she has got the rider who finished second in this event 12 months ago. The Finnish National Road Race champion, Lotta Lepisto, is waiting in her wheel and ready to do battle as we wind our way back up and into Trafalgar Square one more time. But they spear off into this spur, this other race down to a dead turn. Marianne Vos is sitting in about 20th position at the moment. I wonder if she minded to get involved in this. Looks as if she's going to leave it up to Danny Rowe to do the intermediate sprinting and perhaps plan to do some sprinting for the overall race honours a little bit later on. Team Sunweb moving up in the left-hand side of the bunch in those white jerseys with the black stripes. Could it be for Kirschman? The Ali Cipollini team have a rider making their way up. We've got Majerus on the right-hand side of the bunch for the Bowles-Dahlmann squad. How are they lining up?
Wiggle High Five coming around now on the left. They've got 4 riders up there.
Well, how will the Wiggle High Five? Got any inside line on what the plan is for the Wiggle High Five squad? Are they going to split their plans?
Potentially. They've got Amy Cure and Lucy, which could go for the intermediate sprint. I think Kirsten will save it for the finish. But here we see, yeah, Lisa really strong domestique on the front here. She's the leader, so she'll be Kirsten's right-hand woman today.
Lisa Brenner has been third in this event, and she was third 12 months ago. So knows how to sprint, knows how to set it up. And Kirsten Wild is benefiting from a really strong sprint talent in the German rider Lisa Brenner on the front of the peloton. They work their way up towards Trafalgar Square now. Now Team Sunweb starting to make their appearance at the front of the peloton, and they've not really... They've been watching with interest, but not getting much involved in what's been happening to this point. And And this is a flat chat run now to the first intermediate sprint with the Sunweb squad set to control it all the way to the line. Well, it's a long, long way to the line to try and survive clear of the field. Is this Kirschman that's going for the first opportunity to take €1,000? And look at the split at the front of the peloton. Indeed, we've got at least 2 Sunwebs in there. Is it a third? Indeed, as they run through. We'll get the overhead shot. It's going to be a blanket finish with Boels Dolmans as well, getting up perhaps to take it, and Danny Rowe wants to try and pinch this one, but she's got to dig deep. Not going to quite get that one. So that one goes to the Boels Dolmans squad. Wait for full confirmation. Danny Rowe was certainly second across the line. Very useful haul of points, and indeed euros, which will be very welcome for the entire WOW.
I think that's Amy Peters there that took that one.
Amy Peters is one of a strong lineup of sprint talent. Chantal Black, as we mentioned, Christine Majeras helping to set that one up. Amelia Diderickson, I think, probably going for the overall later on at the back of the bunch. Tanja Erath, the German rider with the Canyon SRAM squad. Let's get a look at that again. And well, Danny Rowe was perfectly placed, but Peters was just on the pedals that bit earlier.
Yeah, definitely. It's a long sprint, that one. So yeah, we see 2 sprinters that are really good at long, drawn-out sprints taking that on. She's shaking her hand as she's crossing the pit, so maybe she's got bad legs.
Well, they weren't that bad, were they? Pretty good to me in terms of the speed she was able to generate. And a little bit of a battle for a third. Kirschman on the inside, not quite able to get up.
Lucy for Wiggle High Five there, taking 3rd place in the sprint. Well, it's nice to see Lucy testing her legs.
Garner family proud of a very strong finish and a very strong start to this competition. So the first intermediate sprint is out of the way. While we wait for full confirmation. Certainly it was Amy Peters that managed to get that one from Danny Rowe. Lucy Garner making it 2 Brits in the top 3. And now back to the familiar side of Ashley Mulmapasio on the front and the head of affairs. The Cervella squad not quite able to get involved in that one. At the back of the peloton, look at the intensity of the effort that's going in with these riders absolutely flat chat. If you think it's you know, it sometimes doesn't look particularly quick because you've got so many riders spreading wide across the road trying to get up to the front, but when you look down the back at the effort that Tanja Erath is making for the Canyon SRAM team, you get a real indication of just how intense this pace is. Definitely,
and I just think that the sheer acceleration, how much they've got to put in compared to the guys at the front is just, it'd be almost double. So it's really hard to work from the back.
Yeah, you've got to get up there, and these events often serve, they serve to be an elimination race from the back. We've said it in the past, but that's you know, often the selection of the group that are going to race for the victory is made by eliminating the riders off the back of the group, and that was Erath, who was just moving across. I'm not sure what the point was there. I wonder if she's trying to move up the group, or did she just want to move across to tell someone that she had a bit of an issue? It's pretty compact in there at the moment. And there's been no let-up in the pace after that intermediate sprint. You might have expected a little bit of a stall, but that's certainly not been the case.
No, not at all. They've carried on. I think those 5 girls that got a gap must be snug back in the peloton again, because we've not seen an image of them yet. So, yeah, I think it's all back together. Pace still high. Cervelo Bigler back on the front again for Lotte, keeping it together.
Yeah, the FDJ squad not able to get involved in that intermediate sprint, but they have managed to get control at the front of the peloton. Remember, Rosanne Fournier, 8th here last year, is a great rider to have in your armoury, in your arsenal.
Seeing Amelie Diderickson up the front, so yeah, it makes me wonder if maybe they're not riding for her, if she's put her nose in the wind this early.
Interesting to see. former world road race champion, as Christine Majerus has hit a bit of a problem. We did see the hand fly up from the back of the bunch, so the neutral service very quick to get to her, but of course running discs, and it's a through axle, which means just takes that extra few seconds to take the axle out rather than just unhooking the lever of a standard caliper brake quick release. You've got to put that through axle back in. It's pretty quick by any standards, but it just takes that little bit longer, and there's been so much talk about the introduction of disc wheels, or disc brakes indeed, into professional cycling. It's going to be a tough chase for Majerus.
That's good 30 seconds or more that she's lost there, so in this headwind as well, it's going to be really, really hard to get back on now for her, and especially she's not got the convoy to move up in, so it's going to be an individual time trial now for the next few laps if she makes it that far. If she makes it in, it's going to be a wonderful performance. If she doesn't, it's a significant loss for the Bolstomans. Yeah, definitely. That's one of their main lead-out women gone now. She's super strong, and she's always there chasing breaks down, and even could have sprinted today, so it's going to be a shame if she can't make it back on. Well, I'm sure she enjoys those disc brakes most of the time, but maybe just at that moment she was thinking that she would have liked caliper brakes. But it is an indication as well. We've mentioned the relatively small convoy of cars behind, so it's not like she can just jump in at the back of the 25th or the 30th car and then just make her way up one car at a time. There's no aerodynamic wake to assist her in her battle back to the front. Another dead stop for the riders on the inside. The riders on the outside go the longer way, and those that can pick a line at the very front of the bunch. And the Cervelo Bigla squad have set their stall out. There's no doubt about it. They want to control the front. Neutral service motorbike is giving a little bit of assistance to Christine Majerus to get back in, and that's perfectly acceptable, because she's certainly been significantly inconvenienced by that mechanical issue. She'll be able to see them as well with these dead turns. She'll be able to see how far they are in front, and every U-turn she'll be able to tell how much time she's either made or lost, so that's a good indication whether she's gaining time. Drag race at the front. Cervelo Bigla control the front of the bunch, and Lotte Lepista is an armchair ride at the moment. We've still got a long, long way to go, but this is a statement of intent. There's no doubt about it. This squad have come here to race. Oh, there's been a crash. Oh, and there's riders down at the entrance to Trafalgar Square. Just a couple of riders picking themselves up off the decks. It didn't look as if there was any lingering after effects there, but just a couple of riders just hitting there. It's a relatively quick corner, that. Yeah, probably just a few people, moved lines and chose different lines and, collided. So it didn't look like, I think 2 or 3 riders came down, so not too bad crash. Well, someone spotted someone in the bunch that they were familiar with, so I wonder if it's Abigail Van Twisk's family or supporters. But look at that bunch spread wide across the road at the front, and riders just getting back in, others trying to get a drink and get some sustenance on board after what's been a fairly intense period of activity. It's Amanda Spratt now in the dark with the yellow and black colours of the Michelin Scott squad on the front. Domestic duty, those familiar blue shoes of the Australian climber. And they're trying to make sure that Jolien D'Hoore has a perfect presentation through to the finish, and all those riders getting back on. There's this bit of a stall at the front, and there's crowd around the outside. And well, this road, as you've mentioned, goes fairly thin here coming up to this next right-hander. It's more technical than it looks on television. Yeah, definitely. I think they're thinning out again now, but it's definitely a pinch point, one to watch. Bolstomans go to the front, having a little bit of a conversation. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Christine Majerus is featured in those few words exchanged. The loss of the Luxembourg National Road Race champion could be significant, but I wouldn't rule out the chance of her making it back in. Getting a little bit of aerodynamic assistance from the motorbike, and that's fair enough, I think. And just a circuit just a little bit too long to allow laps out. Of course, in criterium racing, you do get the opportunity to take a lap out if you do have a significant mechanical issue or a crash indeed. Yeah, definitely. And I know today in Wiggle High Five they've paired up Kirsten and Lisa with other riders in the team, because they're our main 2 riders today. So if anything happens, it'll be a quick bike swap within the team to get them back up and going as fast as possible, rather than having a wheel change.
So the job of those supporting riders is to make sure that they are just always wherever Kirsten Wild or Lisa Brenner are.
Yeah, definitely, because if any of them come into trouble, then yeah, we need to drop back and yeah, full commitment to working to get the lead riders back onto the peloton.
Full gas out of the hairpin as well, you might expect, because you're just making it hard for everyone else behind. Harder than all as it is for yourself, it's quite a bit harder for those further back and at the very back of the peloton. Still riding on the back indeed is Tanya Erath. It's not easy to do. She's a pretty strong rider. Just in front of her, Elena Pavlikina, an Azeri rider.
That's Chanel Mason, yeah, elastic snapped, finally.
Well, it's tough to ride at the back, isn't it? She's a fine athlete, there's no doubt about
definitely.
it. But
so powerful.
Yeah. Round Buckingham Palace once more, and making their way out on the next spur. It's the main part of the original Criterium circuit, which formed the circuit that was used in the Ride London Grand Prix, the first edition of which was held in 2013, when this was the first legacy event. This, of course, is the 6th edition of this Ride London Classic. The Ride London event, the weekend of cycling activity, which has raised no less than £53 million over the past 6 years. It really is an extraordinary event, and it's been a wonderful success, and it really has been a proper legacy of what was, I think by common consent, one of the best ever Olympiads held back in 2012. And this is a celebration of all things cycling. One of the WNT riders hitting grief as well. I'm not so sure whether that could have been one of the riders that went down in that crash. We didn't get full sight of the riders that went down, but certainly plenty of riders hitting a little bit of difficulty. And around that left-hander you see as the riders are forced over to the right-hand side of the road. If you're on the hard right, it can be complicated enough as riders inside you just force you just wide towards the curb. So those curbs will certainly get your attention.
There she is, Christina Matros has made it back onto the peloton. What a ride.
Well, no problem.
That's brilliant.
Yes, and how could we have doubted her? Well,
yes,
certainly
exactly.
I did, but yeah, Christine Majeres, what a strong and powerful and superb asset to the Balls-Dahlman squad she's been, and to be a source of great relief indeed that she's managed to make it back in.
She'll take a few laps just sitting in the peloton there, and then probably make her way forward again to help Amy Peters out in the intermediate sprints.
So it's Amy Peters for the intermediate sprints. Has already taken the first one at the end of lap 3. The next one happens at the end of lap 6. Coming at the conclusion, well, at the half-distance point in this event. Now we're starting to see High-Tech Products squad towards the front. Charlotte Becker, the former German national road race champion, has got control at the front. She's got for...
She had a really good season this season, Charlotte. She won the Tour of Chongming Island, so that was a breakaway ride, which hardly ever happens in Chongming. So that was another Women's World Tour she's got under her belt.
Yeah, Brodie Chapman as well, making her way through to the front for the Team Tivco Silicon Valley, the US squad. They've got Kendall Ryan, who's in fine sprinting form, stage win in the Tour of California. Also took a victory in a race in Canada of late. And right on the front is Becker once more for the High-Tech Products squad. Nina Kessler or Thea Thorsen will be their designated sprinter. Come to a dead stop, and it's just so obvious, isn't it? But the riders off the front, indeed, well, on the front, immediately get a couple of bike lengths advantage. If you get a clean run through that corner, you can take your own line, you can use all the road that you need, take the optimum line through, and just maintain the momentum. Is so much better than the riders.
Just saw Corinne Rivera there sitting nicely in the middle of the peloton, which I think is a really good position for her to be in, because she's not taking any wind when it's strung out, and yeah, she's close enough to the front to see anything happening. But yeah, far enough away from the back to have all those extra accelerations.
Which, yeah, she's been almost anonymous so far,
Exactly.
which is just about the greatest compliment you can pay a sprinter, isn't it? They, you know, that you can't even see them means they're getting the maximum amount of shelter, and they're managing to stay out of trouble. But she's just close enough to the front to minimise the risk, really. She's putting more riders behind her, means that, you know, less chance of getting involved in any shenanigans. Trafalgar Square, and at least one eye is being trained on the peloton as they race back down the mile. This is not a sprint lap, as you can tell, so not quite the same intensity. It's still a pretty hectic rate that's being set, but riders getting the opportunity to take a drink. Amanda Spratt sitting just behind Becker. Becker, tall, strong rider, generates plenty of watts. Spratt's in her wake, the Mitchell and Scott squad. She's got the entire team about her. The Mitchell and Scott team, well, they're in fine form. On the rally cycling team as well, another visiting squad. You hear the klaxon. We've got sprint coming up at the conclusion of this lap. 7 laps remaining. Next time we hit the line, we're sprinting for money, sprinting for points, sprinting for glory.
See a lot of orange at the front there. Don't know whether that's Rally or Bowles then helping Amy. Now she's got those points and under her belt, they'll want to secure that, I think.
Yeah, the Bowles-Dolman squad will certainly want to reinforce their authority. They've got the lead of this intermediate sprints classification, and they want to retain it through to the conclusion of this event. So there's a mixture of Bowles-Dolman's riders with those orange helmets, and the rally cycling, the US. Oh, there's a problem there. I think it sounded like a crash, but there was a touch of wheels certainly, but everyone managed to stay upright. But
this is what I was talking about when I say it's a pinch point. It's always one I was scared of when I was doing this race, and yeah, it just shows it really narrows from a wide road into a partial corner, but yeah, definitely a pinch point.
Yes, the voices raised in intensity a little bit in the bunch there. There were a few anxious moments, but and look at that, Majerus is right back up and into duty. She's managed to recover from that effort of getting back on. Superb effort. Down the back, it's an altogether different story for some of the riders from the high-tech products squad. Ingrid Gasken, the Norwegian rider, finds herself towards the back, as indeed Tanya Erath, number 16, has pretty much booked a ticket. Majerus right on the front. She's got the world champion Chantal Black next up. Bowles-Dolman's have control. This team has been the preeminent squad in women's cycling over the past 2 years, well, particularly in 2017, but some fairly useful results in 2018 as well. Anna van der Breggen, of course, is leading the Women's World Tour at the moment. So it's up to her teammates to try and prevent any inroads into her lead in that competition being made. Van der Breggen coming off that second place finish in the La Course by La Tour, which is not the sort of second place that I think she'll be celebrating. It was most extraordinary by Grace. It really was entertaining stuff. This is a race of a very, very different character. This, as I say, has been billed by many as the Sprinters World Championship. It's boiling up for another little hors d'oeuvre coming up very shortly. We're winding up for the second intermediate sprint of the day.
See, Danny Rose got some more support for this sprint. She's got 2 girls around her, so yeah, that shows they're going for it with Danny. Yeah, which then suggests that probably Marianne will be the rider that they work for in the final.
Marianne Vos, we see at the bottom of our screen on the right-hand side, but albeit briefly, but she's playing a watching brief. She's sitting in the wheels in about sort of the first 25 riders, but not going to get involved. Well, I mentioned that leaves might end up in derailleurs, but there's a plastic bag that is an unwelcome addition, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if that rider's not even aware that it exists. It shouldn't be causing too much friction in there. It's not ideal, but it doesn't seem to be retarding the progress of that rider in any significant way at the moment. Danny Rose sitting third wheel of those riders in green, second across the line at the first of those intermediate sprints, and she go one better next time round. Well, we're coming down close to that sprint very shortly. His riders on the back of a completely other agenda, and that's to try and stay involved. Danny Rowe now, centre of those 3 riders, but she's just on the back and she's just about to be placed into perfect position.
The teams would have seen on the last intermediate sprint that there was a gap of the 6 riders that all went for the sprint. So I think, yeah, there probably would have been communication within teams saying, look, these riders went away. If you get up there in the next sprint and keep riding, then yeah, a break could go. So I think, yeah, it could something could happen after this sprint.
Could be an opportunity to split the peloton. It's the Wow Deal squad that have control in the green at the front as we head back towards Trafalgar Square and head into this sprint. Ashley Moolman-Passio is on the front as well, and the white colours, the diminutive rider for Cervelo Bigla, is trying to project Lola Lepisto into a perfect position as Chantal Black, the World Road Race champion, the white jersey with those rainbow stripes, as Amy Peters ready to fire the pistol once more and go for another haul of points. So that peloton is stretched thin, and that can only mean one thing. We're absolutely flat chat here in the Prudential Ride London Classique. It's the 16th round of the World Tour, and it's been all action since the start. No significant breaks, but that's perhaps the nature of the course. But it hasn't meant that the pace has been anything like slow. It's been everything but. It's been absolutely intense. It's gone from absolutely flat out to even faster. Now we get some of the other teams starting to try and get involved.
That's Valcar putting a rider on the front there. They obviously want to go for a long one.
Yeah, well, they've got Maria Giulia Confalonieri, who was 5th in this event in 2016 among their roster. Elisa Balsamo as well is a fine rider from that emerging group of talent from Italy, and it's a narrow advantage, worth racing for, but behind, well, they'll feel they can close it down, but this is a brave effort.
Definitely would have thrown some of the lead outs off as well.
Yeah, it might be confusing the issue a little bit, but that's always to our gain. But I think it's just a long, long way to go, isn't it? This Valcar rider is throwing the dice down, but she's going to be handed down indeed by the Canyon SRAM squad. Want to get control. The Wow Deals team as well. Valcar to the front, with another rider to replace as the Sunweb squad as well get themselves organised. We've got Kirschman, who's in the mix at the first sprint of the day. Shaking the elbows. Who's coming? Where are they? Where's my team?
No one wants to take it up, but here's Ellen van Dijk putting in a massive turn for Leah Kirschman here.
Well, Leah Kirschman's safely nestling, 3rd rider of the Team Sunweb squad. They've got control, they've got the numbers, so Kirschman in the box seat as they race for the second sprint of the day, and it looks as if Danny Rowe's going to have to surf the Mitchell and Scott riders to try and get into position. Kirschman on the left-hand side of the screen, Danny Rowe on the green on the right, coming up the middle, Peters to try and score, and I think Kirschman hung on to that one, perhaps from Peters and from Danny Rowe. It's the usual suspects, but we wait for full confirmation.
Chloe Hoskin was up there in that one as well, so that's really interesting to see.
Now that's the opportunity for the attack. Looks like Mullman's gone for glory here. They spotted what you had mentioned, Grace, a little earlier on, that there was a gap from those sprinters. This time round they've gone for something slightly different. They've made sure they stayed with the sprint, and it looks like we've got an interesting counter. Let's have a little look at this sprint. Hoskin coming up fast with a big charge in the yellow at the back. The green is Danny Rowe, gets up for a nice haul of points once more. On the left we've got Kirschman in the black and white colours of Sunweb, who hangs on for that one, and Amy Peters as well in the mix. So blanket finish, and tough to call exactly the minor positions, but feel confident that it was Kirschman. Could well have been Hosking or Rowe that got up for that second. Well, it's Rowe certainly, wasn't it? I'll tell you what.
Oh,
Rowe might have got that
Danny,
one.
yeah.
There you go. Well, great to get that.
Riding.
Oh, superb resistance there, and that was that's puts Danny Rowe, I suspect, into the lead of this intermediate sprints competition. But as I say, we're hoping that the Abacus speeds can whir along and produce a total And that little counter from Ashley Millman-Passio didn't amount to much. But great sprinting there from Danny Rowe.
Yeah, definitely. And we're just seeing Kirsten move into the front now. She obviously detected a bit of danger. So yeah, that's the first time we've seen Kirsten from Wiggle High Five moving up to the front.
Kirsten Wild wants to stay there or thereabouts. Well, no doubt about Hosking in third and Peters in fourth. The battle for fifth is Valkar and like Canyon SRAM also getting involved in that one. A well-earned drink after that period of intense activity. Could it perhaps offer the opportunity for some riders that have been surfing the wheels to chance an attack or two? Bols Dolmans, though, have control at the front. Amelia Diderickson sitting in second position at the moment. Is she the protected rider, or is she on duty for others? Riders coming up from the back. It was certainly stretched thin there for a little while as a result of that sprint, but now getting back involved. The wind continues to blow, but it gusts around, and no really sustained crosswind section that would offer an opportunity, an obvious opportunity indeed, for any of the those powerful riders that wouldn't be interested in trusting their sprint.
Strong term for Skylar Schneider here. She's I think she's only 18 years old as well, so yeah, I think she's slotted into Bols Dolmans really well, and yeah, a really trusted domestique now, I think.
Yeah, US rider really has been a great addition to the Bols Dolmans squad. Great asset to a team. Her teammate Amelia Diderickson just sitting in second place. Then we scroll across the left-hand side of the bunch to see the rally cycling team trying to get organised. Emma White got a great second place finish on a stage of the Tour of California. Now the Ideal squad as well, trying to make sure that they stay well to the fore. Well, there you have it. Chantal Black, they're showing as score of the points. I'm not sure that's entirely what we saw, but I suspect there are one or two transponder chips have been swapped around among the bikes. They maybe just gave them a bag of chips and they were handed to the mechanic, but we wait for full confirmation, but that certainly doesn't gel with what we picked up. No doubt about it, though. It was Danny Rowe that did get that second one. She's got a first and second place finish from the first two sprints of the day. So surely is leading this with a 9-point total.
Lisa Brennauer on the front now. She's yeah, keeping this pace high for Kirsten. It's yeah, all in for Kirsten today for the Wiggle High Five team. So she's going to be controlling it and making sure nothing stays away and making sure that Kirsten has a perfect opportunity to sprint in the end.
Well, by my reckoning, Amy Peters has 7 points, but Danny Rowe has 9, so she'd have a 2-point advantage. And Leah Kirschman's also scoring very well. She'll have 6 points. So that is my completely unofficial top 3 at the moment. But Danny Rowe leading that sprints competition. There's a €3,000 top prize for it, so we'll wish her well in her best efforts to try and do that. But also Leah Kirschman and Amy Peters well to the fore, trying to do what they can as Tanya Erath is trying to get back on, finding herself in arrears, and a little bit of assistance here from Ingrid Moe, the Norwegian rider of the high-tech product squad. These two riders finding themselves distanced with a little bit of work to do. And the pace is relentless, and when you're just dangling off the back, you're often making bigger efforts than the other riders, so it can be a downward spiral to oblivion, really. If you find yourself at the back, it's almost impossible to make your way up, and you're constantly making greater efforts, and well, it can be somewhat depressing. It also can be challenging to the morale, but those two riders clearly not giving up yet, working hard to get back involved.
With the U-turns, yeah, with the U-turns as well, because the peloton slows so much, they do have the opportunity to go fast. And you see Tanya's left this rider now. So yeah, in the next U-turn she might be able to close that gap.
Oh, superb resistance from Tanja Erath, indeed, the German rider. She just wasn't going to give up on that one. Ingrid Moe as well is also going to get back up and into the peloton, and no doubt if either of those two riders have half a chance, they'll come wading down the inside or around the outside and try and find a spot in the sanctuary of the centre of the peloton. The problem is, of course, it's pretty busy in there. There's a lot of elbows flying. Things can get pretty hectic. That's will certainly make it difficult to keep your position in there.
Yeah, definitely. It's because it's such a high-profile race as well. Everyone's desperate to be near the front. So I can imagine there's a lot of nerves floating around the peloton today.
Now, one or two nervous moments for all the teams. The Silence Pro Cycling squad of Giorgia Bronzini among their number, but their number is a total of 4, so they're 2 riders short, and there are not a lot of riders to assist Giorgia Bronzini, the winner of this race back in 2014, double winner indeed of the World Road Race Championships in the past. Bronzini's on pretty good form at the moment. She might fancy her chances today, but could well be a case she's going to have to surf the wheels of some of the other teams' lead-out trains. She's got, though, for assistance Sheila Gutierrez, who was in the breaks on more than one occasion, in the early break indeed, in the Giro Rosa, the women's, the premier women's stage race in world cycling, the 10-day event in Italy.
She's definitely a rider with the experience to do that as well. She knows all the...
Get back on, and that's going to make it just a little bit easier for some of the riders that are safely in the group. They get the recovery too, and that shows just that little bit of an opportunity for an attack.
That was Abby Parkinson there making a move. She's a really strong one. If she got a gap, she'd be able to hold it. So yeah, I think it's good that they shut that one down straight away.
Yeah, Abby May Parkinson. Her mother, Lisa Brambani, would have adored an event like this back in her pomp in the 1980s. She was a superb rider.
Such a good team player as well, Abby. She's always up there working for her teammates, and she's had some really good results this year.
Valcar squad want to get involved as well. We see those pink and blue jerseys just trying to gravitate towards the front. Rally cycling also represented. I mentioned that Emma White is a rider that they'll look to project into prime position at the conclusion of this event. We've got the Canadian road race champion Catherine Main among their number as well. Paul Stommans, though, they own this one at the moment. This is the American teenager Skylar Schneider, and Amanda Spratt to her left, and to the right as we look at screen for the Mitchell and Scott squad, the climbing sensation from Australia. Now the Tipco squad looking to regain control. Is Drexel Clothier, the Mexican rider, who rotates towards the front. Kendall Ryan is the rider she's looking after. Stage winner in the Tour of California earlier this year. She put some big World Tour names behind her to take that victory. They'll know all about her. Chloe Hosking just pinching a little bit of a spot down the inside. Just trying to make sure she maintains position well to the fore. Not a bad place to do it. It's one of the faster turns. As I mentioned, there's 7 braking points around this circuit, and every time you brake it means you got to accelerate, and it's a human engine that bears the stress, and plenty of riders in there are feeling the stress. Chantal Black surely not, though, among their number. The World Road Race champion, a glorious solo success, or at least a small group success. Well, it was a solo success from a small group in the World Road Race Championships in Bergen in Norway last September. She'll defend that title in an altogether different circuit in Austria in a few months' time. That's going to be a challenge for her certainly to retain her title. She's one of a superstar collection of Dutch riders. They really have got such an amazing collection of talent. It's cost her with those stripes as a former national road race champion that was just gravitating on the front. And the attacks are starting to appear. The legs soften up a little bit, and that offers an opportunity. Nicely timed.
That was well timed. I think it was quite unexpected as well, so they've caught the peloton napping a little bit there. They've attacked somewhere where probably an attack you wouldn't think would go, so yeah, it's a good opportunity for them to go now if they can work together.
Yeah, first rider to attack there was, of course, Brody Chapman, that rider for Team Tibco that was just gravitating on the front. Just got the Italian National Road Race champion for company. And riders coming across. So the Mitchell and Scott squad have recognised, there's a crash at the back of the peloton, so one or two riders down in the... that's
Alice
Barnes indeed, the sprinter for the Canyon SRAM squad. She's got her teammate Krista Riffel who's going to assist her. Other riders that have been badly inconvenienced by that include Hanselman from the Sevilla Bigler. Let's get a look at this. It's a touch of wheels in the middle of the bunch, or was it closer to the back? Yeah, middle you would expect, given the oh, that was an awkward one, wasn't it? It's one of the high-tech riders finds herself pushing one of the barriers out of the way. That a difficult moment as those riders at the back just work their way around. Indeed, FDJ riders finding themselves Duval, Eugenie Duval. And this is the head of the race, as that little flurry of activity causes, at the back, causes consternation, causes no end of concern and worry. But I tell you what, that short little moment off the front served as a warning to some of the leading teams. They've got to remain ever vigilant. And as I say, the legs may be starting to soften up a little bit. We're down to the final 22.5 kilometres.
That was 3 Canyon SRAM riders were held up by that crash there, if not 4. So, yeah, it'd be good. They've got each other to work together to get back on, but it's at a late stage in the race, so it's going to, I think it'll have a big impact on their final sprint now.
Switzerland, Nicole Hanselman is going to try and get back on, but plenty of cracks developing. And following the neutralisation of that attack, everyone has a little look around and a drink, and riders charge back from behind, but they'll get less recovery than those at the front before the next flurry of activity. Will it be an attack, or will it be an attempt to try and control the pace at the front? Looks more like the latter at the moment, but the Mitchell and Scott squad of Yolien Dora, represented by Amanda Spratt at the front at the moment, and indeed the Sevilla Bigler squad, they want to make sure that they control. It looks like Anne-Sophie Duik has made it up towards the front. Hanselman, her teammates, off the back at the moment. Maybe they heard that and they just want to control the pace a little bit, maybe throttle back a little bit and just allow her to get back on.
Yeah, I think if there's a number of riders from a number of different teams being caught up in the break, then there will be a lull in action, because everyone will want it to come back together. They need as much strength as they can.
Well, the British rider Alice Barnes from Northamptonshire finding herself in a little bit of a difficult moment, hitting the deck, but didn't look as if there was any significant damage done there, so I think she's going to be able to get back up and on. But how much of a delay will it have cost her, and what will it do to her sprint for later on?
She's lucky to have been held back with a few of her team, so they can do a team time trial back on, and yeah, hopefully they'll make it back on in time.
Spratt grinding the big gear, just setting a tempo that prevents any attacks, and you hear the klaxon roar. The third and final sprint of the afternoon coming very shortly, and Mitchell and Scott out at the front of the peloton at the moment. Sevilla Bigler have a couple of riders. No surprise, one of them is actually Moolman Pasio. We'll maintain a watching brief. Those riders are going to have big job to get back up, because that's coming at a bad time, isn't it? We've got a sprint lap and those riders are trying to get back up.
Yeah, it's really going to have an impact on their efforts to try and get back up. It's going to string the peloton out even more. So yeah, they will have an even bigger gap to close.
Mitchell and Scott on the right hand side of the picture, black with the yellow flashing, have control at the front of the peloton. Riders at the back, well, trying to recover and then trying to make their way up. Yolien Dora is the third of those 3 riders from the Mitchell and Scott squad at the moment. Slightly different agenda for the team directly to their left, or to our right as we look, as the Balls Dolman squad are trying to project Amy Peters into an opportunity to take this intermediate sprints title. Scored well so far, with a win and a second place, or a win and a 4th place by our reckoning. It's all unofficial, but we think she's lying 2 points off the lead. 5 points for the win across the line, so great opportunity for Amy Peters to take this intermediate sprints title that serves as an interesting diversion, to say the least, as we get prepared for the big event. And of course, it plays into the tactics of the teams as well. How much energy do they devote to this intermediate sprints competition? With just a maximum of 6 riders, it takes a great confidence in the depth of your resources to actually go hunting for this intermediate sprints title.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't win this sprint alone. You've got to have a lead out. So the lead out for the intermediate sprint's more than likely going to be the lead out for the main sprint. So I think, yeah, you've got to play it carefully. You don't know how much it's going to take out of them, especially in this strong headwind. But yeah, certainly for these intermediate sprints, you almost need a full lead out.
Paul Stallman's in the middle, Mitchell and Scott on the left-hand side of picture. Team Sunweb moving up. Leah Kirschman just pipped for that sprint last time round by Danny Rowe. Kirschman well to the fore and well within her sights as well. An opportunity to take the big prize. So this is the race within the race, the play within the play, and it is going to be a big play for glory from the Team Sunweb, Mitchell and Scott. Let's hope Mitchell and Scott, although there is the useful prize money on offer, but they're not in the hunt for the sprints title. Could be more a case of just trying to keep Yolindora out of any significant trouble. Those riders, well, I think their day could well be done. Not going to get back on from there.
That's British rider Alice Cobb.
Head of the race, Yolindora, Belgian sprint star, track racer extraordinaire as well. He's competed with great distinction in the Omnium and indeed the points race at the World Championships and elsewhere. Through the left-hander. Technical nature of the course serving to stretch the bunch out. And that's good news for Amanda Spratt and her Mitchell and Scott teammates. And it seems to me as if some of the other teams are grateful for this little bit of a lead out from Mitchell and Scott.
Yeah, it's really good to see actually Micah Kroger from Team Virtue sitting on Yolene's wheel. She would get yeah, as soon as she's got a gap, she's gone. She's always a danger. She's always there when there's breakaway moves. So I think, yeah, that's probably a little dangerous thing waiting to happen as the sprint's coming up and Micah's ready for action.
Well, here comes the Wow Deal squad, and they've got numbers aplenty. I tell you what, as Danny Rowe has come into this sprints competition more and more, she's got more riders. She had 1 rider to help her, then 2, now she's got 3, because they can sense the opportunity to take the sprints title. So Danny Rowe is going to be projecting. They've done it in a nice way here. She's sitting second wheel, and she's got 2 teammates behind. The Mitchell and Scott squad, the Wow Deals team, all 4 riders in a row, but it's the rider in second position at the moment is the rider they're really looking out for. Those yellow sunglasses of Britain's Danny Rowe.
It's interesting, we also see the Bowles-Dolman girls have got 3 other riders for Amy Peters, so it's going to be almost a full lead out for both Danny and Amy here.
Well, can they control this one all the way to the line, or will we see the Valkar squad moving up? We're also seeing Cervella Biglow that haven't managed to get involved. Not so sure they're that keen to get involved. I think they just want to keep out of trouble and perhaps take an opportunity immediately after the sprint at any stall that might happen. It's almost like a points race on the track, isn't it, in many ways? So now Rowe prepares to sprint. She's got her teammates around her. The Bowles-Dolman squad also have riders aplenty, with Peters ready to be marshalled through, given the armchair ride. Chantal Black is going to the front. So we've got the Wow Deal squad, all 3 riders now indeed, and now then 3 riders for the Bowles Dolman squad are doing a similar job. They've got Christine Majerus to ride shotgun for Amy Peters. Peters in turn has Chantal Black, so it's the rider in the middle of those two teams that is the one to look out for. Black just waiting to come off the wheel of the green train at the front. They're sent on around Trafalgar Square and then through Admiralty Arch. The long drag race to the line is going to be led out by the Wowdeal squad.
Got Stulchens and Costa there doing a massive lead out for Danny.
Yeah, Stulchens has great stage race rider, great climber, great all-rounder. Costa too is a great sprinter in her own right, and she's going to set up Danny Rowe absolutely perfectly. Chantal Black wants to allow Majerus to take it up for Peters, and they've decided to go for a little bit earlier, so Danny Rowe is coming to try and hold off Peters, but I'm not so sure she's timed it right. But I tell you what, she won't give up all the way to the line. It's going to be a blanket finish between these two riders, but Peters that gets up to take it from Danny Rowe. Well, the Valcar riders managed to get up and get involved for the first time. Now, those two riders will contest. I'm not so sure that Danny Rowe hasn't quite done enough there. I think she could well just about have managed to do it, yeah.
It's split to pieces now. There's groups of 2 and 3 going through the line. Well, that must have been a real fast sprint there.
Well, Peters just timing her effort to absolute perfection. Chantal Black just gave the nod to Christine Majerus. Majerus in turn handed over to Peters. Peters wasn't found wanting, was she? And Danny Rowe, well, she was set up nicely indeed by her team as well, and hung on for a great second-place finish that I think could well be enough to give her the overall title. We're not going to confirm that just yet. Leah Kirschman prevented from doing any better than 4th by one of the Valcar riders. We'll wait for full confirmation. I'm not sure it was Confalinieri. It could be Balsamo. Got up and in the mix there, but look at the intensity of the effort from Danny Rowe. She certainly left it all out there.
Definitely, she always does.
Yeah, an amazingly hard-trying rider. And the riders will use all the road and then some. It's a little bit of gravel off-road riding for those riders, but I think the tyres are able to take a little bit of a risk, isn't it? But not a huge risk. It's worth it for the opportunity to maybe grab a few spots into this dead turn, as Amanda Spratt still continues to control. And we didn't get that attack after that sprint. Those riders did get a gap, but none of those riders was interested in trying to maintain what they had, and no one else. I think everyone else was just happy to get back on. Yeah,
I think so close to the finish. I think everyone's just going to go full commitment into a sprint now. You see the main riders moving up, see riders we've not seen before in the race so far moving up to the front, so means everyone's getting in position ready for their lead outs.
Down to the final 15 kilometres of the Prudential Ride London Classic, the 3rd edition of this race as a World Tour event. Of course, 3 previous editions of the Ride London Grand Prix. The first edition, of course, won by the Wiggle Honda team, represented in that, on that day by Laura Trott. And they hung on to the title, didn't they, the following year? Giorgia Bronzini winning in 2014 from Mariana Voss and Olivia Armistead, as she was then, and Barbara Guarici, who's in the field today. She won the Ride London Grand Prix, the final edition of this race. Much shorter lap for the riders, slightly different character of an event. She took the victory in 2015 from Giorgia Bronzini and Shelley Oles, and turned into a World Tour event on this longer lap, with Kirsten Wild taking the win for High Tech 2 years ago. Nina Kessler and Leah Kirschman also on the podium in 2016, and in 2017 it was in the rain and the torrential rain, horrible conditions. It was Corin Rivera of Team Sunweb that splashed her way up the mall and into the victory, ahead of Lotta Lepisto and Lisa Brennauer. Mariana Voss, Kirsten Wild, Jolien Dora, Amelia Diderickson all to the fore, and it's those names that we're expecting to feature once more, because they're all familiar with this. Rosanne Fournier is in here again for the FDJ squad. Barbara Guarici, who took the title as a when it was the Ride London Grand Prix. Also in the top 10 last year, Giorgia Bronzini 10th across the line in 2017. And if anything, I think her form is perhaps a little bit better than it was then. So don't rule out Bronzini for another title as well.
You can see Alice Barnes has made it back onto the peloton and moved right back up to the front there with Trixie Worrack. So yeah, she's definitely probably back in contention now.
That's great news for Alice Barnes. Her sister Hannah is a great sprinter herself, and Hannah Barnes was second in the first edition of the Ride London Grand Prix back in 2013, second to Laura Trott. Hannah Barnes recovering. We sent our best wishes to her, recovering from broken collarbone. Sustained after doing superb work indeed for the Canyon SRAM squad at the Giro Rosa a few weeks ago, but crashed on stage 5, sustained a broken collarbone and not able to get involved in the Ride London Classique this afternoon, which I know will be a source of great anguish to her and cause her as much pain as the collarbone fracture did. But well, we wish her well in her recovery, and she'll be back in action very soon. Handing it over to Alice Barnes, and not a bad second option indeed. Something similar happened in the Tour de Yorkshire earlier on this year, the first stage into Doncaster, and Hannah Barnes finding herself delayed in the final turn, and Alice Barnes, quick as a flash, responding and understanding what had happened. She went from lead-out duties into sprinting herself, and managed to get up for a decent finish on that occasion. It was certainly a top 4 finish. Just look up my notes very shortly and let you know, but Alice Barnes, fine sprinter, and in the top 10 in this event in 2016. So we'll watch out to see whether Trixie Worrack, the time trial winner in the Bennett Ladies Tour last week, is able to get up and propel her into perfect position at the back end. The Canyon SRAM squad with options, so too have others. Well, there's confirmation of the riders across the line at the conclusion of the third and final sprint, with Amy Peters getting that 5-point haul, and indeed €1,000 to go with it, ahead of Danny Rowe. Chiara Consoni of the Valcar squad it was indeed for third, ahead of Leah Kirschman and Chantal Black, hanging on for the final point after her great lead-out duties. But I do believe, we wait for full confirmation, that could well have been Danny Rowe that did take that intermediate sprints title and the €3,000 check that goes with it. So it's already been a pretty good afternoon for the Wow Deals Pro Cycling team. Can they do something more? Interesting that Mitchell and Scott haven't really been all that interested with it. For them, they're rolling the dice and it's all about the win.
Yeah, I think we saw Jolene trying to get involved, but I don't think they put their full commitment into those intermediate sprints. So yeah, I think they've definitely got a strong lead out. Gracie and Sarah Roy are really, really good lead out guys. They're strong both in the sprint themselves. So yeah, they've got a really good opportunity today with Jolene.
Jolene Dora has never been far from the front. She's been marshalled and policed and escorted indeed by her Mitchell and Scott squad with great facility and ease, and they've controlled the front of the bunch for many, many laps now. Tibco have made occasional forays. Cervello, Bigla were certainly much in evidence in the early stages, not far from the front but not on it of late. So the Tibco squad just starting to appear. The high-tech team as well.
You can see Sunweb gathering as well on the left-hand side of the peloton.
Down to the final 11 kilometres. And to the final couple of laps of this event. And now all of the teams are starting to... There's a very different character about the bunch now. There's a very different mood. And the riders all know that we're coming down into the business end. So there'd be a heightened level of anxiety. And certainly the adrenaline will be starting to course through the veins of those riders at this point.
Yeah, definitely. As you can see there, Sunweb are all on the radios. They're full team of 6 there for Corinne. Corinne just saying something down the radio, maybe not to commit too early because there's still 10.76 kilometres to go.
And how important is it for the sprinter to call the shots, or is it some of the other riders that will organise the lead out?
Normally the sprinter, you've just got to have ace communication. You've got to know where you're going to go, which side the sprinter wants to come off. And yeah, I think also is key communication at this stage as well, because you don't want to go too early. You don't want to commit too early.
Is it something the teams practice in training, camp, or is it can only really be done in full race competition? Yeah,
it can be practiced in training, but of course you never get the full effect of the other teams elbowing you. And as you can see there, Corinne's got someone on her wheel protecting her wheel there. So yeah, so she's definitely safe.
Yeah, the ideal position for Team Sunweb is right to the fore And for the first time, we're starting to see Corinne Rivera, the reigning champion, making her presence felt towards the front. We've got the full team in front of her. She's just a little bit towards the back. She's got Leah Kirschman just one in front of her, and just pick her out. She has a diminutive figure, isn't she? She's a real pocket rocket. But, just surfing the wheels of her teammates and indeed others. The Balls-Dolman squad in the centre of the picture. The FDJ squad, the red, white and blue of the French, well, it's effectively the French national team, isn't it? It's the French national professional team, you might say. And Rosanne Fournier, we believe, is the rider that they're likely to organise things for at the back end. So around the hairpin.
It'll be interesting to see which sides the sprint trains choose to commit to because of the twists and turns. It'll be good to see which side the winner comes from as well.
Yes, it's a pretty wide drag strip, isn't it? A lot of sprints would often happen on roads that are quite a bit narrower. This is a wide one, so it offers opportunities. And
yeah, definitely, especially teams like Ale, they always come late, but with a race like this you can't come late to the front of the peloton because yeah, you're just risking too much and you're probably not going to get round. So it's so important to have your full lead out on the front organised with more than enough time.
Organised with more than enough time. Well, there's not that much time left now. We're down to the final 9 and a bit kilometres, so next time round going to get the bell.
Can see the Ale lead out forming, but they are quite far back, so they'll probably use this next straight when it opens up to just fully commit and go around the side. That's
Ale Cipollini in those day-glow yellow jerseys, the slightly darker yellow and black jersey, the Mitchell & Scott squad. They're well to the fore as well with Amanda Spratt. How many laps has she done on the front? She's a climber by trade, but she's a pretty useful all-rounder, isn't she? And that's something that we've discussed, that in women's racing, the riders really are all-rounders.
Yeah, definitely. You've seen it more and more. Girls who can time trial and then pull a sprint out the bag against some of the top sprinters in the world. So yeah, it's definitely shows everyone's abilities as well, which is amazing, which yeah proves for exciting racing.
So the Wiggle High Five squad starting to appear towards the front as well as Kirsten Wild tries to get into position to make this 2 wins from 3 in this event. She's sitting well to the fore. She's got a teammate for company. Mitchell & Scott squad still with significant numbers. The Ale Cipollini team in those yellow colours as well. And Team Sunweb not too far from the front. The Balls-Dolman squad have just stepped off the gas ever so slightly after their initial efforts, but don't be at all surprised to see them wind it all up. And as Corinne Rivera was likely saying to her teammates over the radio, and indeed we've been talking about here, it's all about timing, isn't it? You don't want to leave it too late to get to the front. By the same token, you want to make sure you get there.
And seeing the finish line from so far out as well, everyone will be itching to go, but with this headwind and the finish line being visible, it's just so important to be patient.
Spratt on the front, and everyone's happy with the job she's doing at the moment. The Mitchell & Scott team own this one. They've got riders aplenty, so Yulin Dora will be satisfied to sit in the wheels with 7.6 kilometres remaining. Though, can Mitchell & Scott control it all the way to the line? That's a big ask, despite the numbers that they've got there. Fully 5 riders, including, of course, their sprinters, so 4 riders to do the riding. Gracie Elvin at the back of their lineup, just riding shotgun. Yulin Dora is the second from back of the Mitchell & Scott team. She's the Belgian sprint star.
Just see Lotte Lepisto there with just one rider in front of her, which is, yeah, on this circuit, it's probably ideal, really. You don't want too many riders to get in the way.
Yes, it's possible to surf the wheels of the other sprint trains, and some riders prefer it, don't they? They don't always respond to the pressure of having an entire team.
Yeah, definitely, and I think especially on a race like this, it's too technical to have. Yeah, you know, if every single team had a full lead out, it'd be so hectic in the final. So I think, yeah, if they've got trust in the sprinter, then if they just have one rider to protect them, then yeah, it's definitely a good idea.
Well, if you've only got one, make it a good one. And at the moment, the Cervelo Bigla squad certainly doing a solid job indeed for Lotte Lepisto. So much of the afternoon, Ashley Moolman-Passio has been well to the fore, escorting her sprint, her Finnish star. Amanda Spratt too will certainly earn a well-earned clap on the back. And now we start to see the Wiggle High Five squad start to make their presence felt in numbers at the front for Kirsten Wild. We're expecting the final lead out from Lisa Brenner. Is that likely to be the way they'll play it?
Yeah, it's likely to be the way they play it. She's such a strong sprinter herself, so I think, yeah, Lisa will be the final lead out. You just see Lucy taking Lisa and Kirsten up to Macy's wheel there, so they've got their full 6 riders up at the front now.
So Lucy Garner, the former junior world road race champion, and a great asset to the Wiggle High Five squad, which is no more at the end of this season, sadly, and it's been a great addition and a great asset to women's pro cycling over recent years, and we wish indeed all the riders, including the woman alongside me, the very best for their careers to come. Indeed all the staff involved in that team. Into the final 5 and a bit kilometres to go. We're heading down the mile, and we're going to get the bell very shortly, as the Mitchell and Scott squad absolutely happy to own this one. They've lived at the front for many kilometres now, and they've got the numbers. And the other teams, some of them are absolutely satisfied to let them at it. Others are incapable of having an opinion either way, because it's been such an intense and pressured effort being made. There's the bell. 1 lap to go in the Prudential Ride London Classique. We're racing for glory and racing for a €25,000 top prize at the conclusion of this next 5.3 kilometre lap. We've got Christine Majerus at the head of the Balls-Dahlman squad, and just surfing the wheels of the Mitchell and Scott team. And it's just such an impressive effort by Amanda Spratt. She's sat there for such a long time, and it's great news because it enables more of the Mitchell and Scott riders to stay in there. Now we're starting to see Canyon SRAM get involved. They're trying to police and present Alice Barnes into perfect position.
Yeah, now we see Balls-Dahlman taking over from Mitchelton Scott. I think, yeah, Mitchelton Scott did start early, but they've got that strength there. They can stay there. They can remain as fast as the other teams.
So the Balls-Dahlman squad have come up, and it's now a bit of a tandem race, isn't it? Side by side between Mitchell and Scott and the Balls-Dahlman squad at the head of affairs. And who are they setting up for? Looks like it's going to be Dideriksen, is it? No, I'm not so sure. Will Peters go again?
Yeah, Dideriksen is now on the wheel of Lepisto, so
she's going to pick that lead out. Yeah. And surfing other trains has produced pretty significant benefits for Amelia Dideriksen in the past. We think of her surfing the Dutch national team to glory in Doha a couple of years ago in the World Road Race Championships. Look at the Valcar squad, the Italian team, moving up on the left-hand side of the road. Others at the back have done their duty and done their work, and they'll just watch with interest and wait to hear how it all played out in the final 4 and a bit kilometres. Wowdeal's team also starting to appear. Silence have at least one rider for Giorgia Branzini to try and organise things. It's not a huge representation for them. The Team Sunweb squad have got numbers up there, but it's not as organised now. Inside 4 kilometres to go. Not as organised as perhaps they might want. And the Cervelo Bigla squad, well, Ashley Mullman-Passio has done great work to this point. So now Lotta Lepisto is going to benefit from others.
Looks like everyone's getting a little bit nervous now. There's a lot of riders mixing in. I think with the corners, it's shaking the standings up a little bit.
Well, they'd all like to be in perfect team formation right into the sprint. That's not quite the way it's going to play out, though. We've got Balls-Dahlman up the front. The Mitchell and Scott team still have numbers, but well, they're down to 1 indeed to assist Yolin Dora, so it's all come apart a little bit at the seams through that technical effort, and there's at least 2 riders from Mitchell and Scott trying to make their way back up and into contention. The Balls-Dahlman's squad lose a rider, have a little look around and just try and get their train organised once more. That hands the advantage back to the Mitchell and Scott team. We've got the Dayglow yellow jerseys of the Ale Cipollini team. Is it going to be for Marta Bastianelli? Or will it be for Chloe Hosking? I think probably the former, but we wait for full confirmation of that. The Wiggle High Five squad in the dark colours in the centre of shot are setting it up for Kirsten Wild. Now we've got the white and blue, indeed red colours of the FDJ team, the French squad for Rosanne Fournier. Rally cycling well to the fore. Emma White's a great sprinter for them in the orange colours And they've got representation at the front of the bunch. Not too much representation at the moment from Team Sunweb, and that's got to be a source of surprise. The reigning champion Corinne Rivera is playing it cool, as indeed are her teammates. Inside 3 kilometres to go.
Yeah, Ellen van Dijk was surfing the wheels at the front there, so she's ready when Corinne comes up. And you see Mariana now surfing the wheels. She's following Silence and bowls Dolmans now, so she's in a prime position.
Prime position for many of the best riders in the world as we wait to see who's going to come with the late run. 2.5 kilometres remaining. Mitchell and Scott are in control, well, almost in control. Lotta Lepisto finds herself at the very front. I'm not sure that was planned.
No, certainly not. I think, yeah, having that one lead out maybe wasn't a good idea, because now she's been left to push some wind, and I think, yeah, she's going to have to reevaluate her position.
Well, at least she's picking up a wheel from the very front. She just had to coast, lift and coast there, and slots in behind Ale Cipollini. Now with Wiggle High Five working it around the outside for Kirsten Wild. Finds herself in the middle of the Ale Cipolinis, with Lisa Brenner on duty for her. That's Lisa Brenner, the first of those Wiggle High Five riders. Mitchell and Scott on the front in the black and yellow colours, the day-glow yellow colours of the Ale Cipollini team for Marta Bastianelli, the former World Road Race champion. Or is it for Hosking? I'm not 100% sure how they're going to play this. Looks like Hosking at the back of their lineup. Or is she riding shotgun? It looks like Marta Bastianelli one in front of her. Hosking's at the back. So still they have options. They may sprint with 2 riders.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's a massive race. Why not? Go for it.
Yeah, the more riders you get up there, the more prize money. And, well, points make prizes. Prize money makes everybody happy. The Valcar squad get into prime position through that final hairpin bend. We've got another couple of little twists and turns before we get into the final run to the line. 1,300 metres remaining for the Valcar squad. They've got Consoni as a good sprinter. Confalonieri is a fine sprinter as well, as indeed is Elisa Balsamo. Valcar get to the front, and the pink and blue jerseys of the Italian team well to the fore. But look at the effort that's being made to try and allow this to happen. We've got Lisa Brenner for Wiggle High Five. She's got Kirsten Wild, the Dutch veteran superstar, and now we've got Sunweb making an appearance. 3 Sunweb riders, followed in turn by the reigning champion Corinne Rivera. And what a great job is that Warwick that's trying to set up Alice Barnes onto the front, and Alice Barnes is going to be left to surf the wheels of Team Sunweb. She's been placed in prime position. Indeed, Corinne Rivera is going to have to try and pick that one up. Not so sure how Rivera's been placed as a result of that little bit of a flurry left and right. That chicane not really working out for Sunweb, and Rivera's having to make an effort around the outside. She's well able to do it. That's one sprint she didn't want to have to make. She gets back, to ride it down, one of the FDJ riders, and they all tumble in huge order. Lots of the Wow Deals riders, at least 2 of them, and it's a big pile up behind. Now we'll focus on the sprint as the Ale Cipollini team try to project Chloe Hosking into perfect position as she goes for the line. And now it's the Sunweb squad. Kirschman on the front, trying to do the lead out for Corinne Rivera. Rivera's going to be set up absolutely perfectly. Kirsten Wild in the centre of the shot as they run to the line. Kirsten Wild for the Wiggle High Five squad. No one's going to stop Kirsten Wild. Kirsten Wild makes it 2 from 3. It is the Dutch superstar Kirsten Wild that takes the victory for Wiggle High Five. Beautifully placed, beautifully played. She knew how to do it. Stu wins in a 5th place from 3 races here at the Prudential Ride London Classique. And Kirsten Wild has avoided the crashes, has surfed the wheels to glory, has produced that powerhouse sprint once more, and this wonderful superstar of Dutch cycling and indeed world cycling has given Wiggle High Five a great victory. So she's absolutely delighted, as indeed are all the team. Well done and congratulations to her and to all of the riders at the conclusion of just under 1 hour and 40 minutes. But it's another hands in the air celebration from Kirsten Wild, who timed this to absolute perfection.
Yeah, you can just see her there. She stayed really calm around the corner, even with the crash. She was alone, but yeah, she held on to Chloe's wheel there, and I think, even a wobble, and she still stayed calm. And this is a perfect finish for Kirsten when it's long and flat and straight. And yeah, she's just always does extremely well in a drag race. So I think when Mariana went, she went pretty early, so that made Kirsten have to open up probably a little bit earlier, but she caught sight of Mariana just in time, and yeah, it was a drag race between them two all the way to the finish, and Kirsten just got the better of it. It was really close there.
Yeah, it wasn't the first time that Mariana Vos has gone toe-to-toe with Kirsten Wild in a sprint, and Vos is in fine sprinting form at the moment, but really there's nothing to stop Kirsten Wild when she's on this type of form, and Kirsten Wild was not to be denied. Beautifully timed effort from Mariana Vos, the European Road Race champion, but found herself in the win maybe just a little bit too long. Kirsten Wild, though, coming off the wheel of Chloe Hosking, and Hosking in turn having to pick up the wheel of Kirsten Wild to get a decent result out of it. It was blanket finish. Corinne Rivera, the reigning champion, on the left-hand side of the picture, not quite able to get up there, but Wild had time to get an arm in the air at the end of what was a pretty hectic sprint. Many riders finding themselves with bumps and bruises. Got busy in there. But Kirsten Wild has the power and the judgment and the experience and the commitment to know exactly what wheel to take, exactly when to time her effort, and that one was another perfect display of how to do road race sprinting. Mariana Vos, the great Mariana Vos, the European Road Race champion, confirmed in second place, and we wait for the full confirmation of the standings. In Consoni again, they got up for third. We'll wait for full confirmation of that. Well, there we go. It is Kirsten Wild, the winner, ahead of Mariana Vos. And Lisa Balsamo was indeed. They got up for third, ahead of Chloe Hosking, Lotta Lepisto, Corinne Rivera, Yolene Dora, Bronzini, Barnes and Diderickson rounding out the top 10 at the conclusion of the third edition of the Ride London Classique. And what an entertaining edition it's been. Wild, well, she absolutely loves racing in this part of the world. Took a great stage victory into Doncaster in the first stage of the Tour de Yorkshire earlier on this year, so she's added another significant victory to her palmarès. She's won this race back in 2016 with the high-tech squad, and now given a very significant victory. Let's have a look at this crash that happened in the closing stage as they got organised. And it was one of the riders, touch of wheels from one of the FDJ riders off one of the Valcar riders. Just
then we see the Sunweb and Ale Cipollini almost have a collision right at the front there as well.
Yeah, it all got busy, didn't it? This race really matters a lot. Not sure if that was Fournier. It was certainly one of the FDJ riders, and well, one or two endos there that didn't look pleasant, did they?
That would have been a really high-speed crash.
Yeah, the high-speed ones, well, they guarantee plenty of road rash. Well, that was painful stuff, but avoiding the schmozzle and surfing the wheels to glory and producing that powerhouse sprint once more was the great Kirsten Wild. Absolutely in love with all things British, I think, in terms of cycling. And the Dutch racer, she's 35 years of age now. She won't thank me to remind her of her age, but there seems to be no diminishment of her abilities.
You see the power there, the power that she puts out. It's just phenomenal. On a flat course, she's just, yeah, head and shoulders above the rest.
Yeah, two Prudential Ride London Grand Prix to go with, well, an array of success. Great stage victory of late in the Giro Rosa as well, of course. She well, led the points classification for many stages in Giro Rosa, so we knew she was coming in with some pretty good form. 3 overall successes in the Tour of Chongming in the past, 4 overall successes in the Women's Tour of Qatar. No less than 10 stage victories in that Pamflat event over the years as well. Not to mention her success on the track. 3 world titles indeed gleamed on the home boards of Apeldoorn in the Netherlands earlier on this year. And it really is an extraordinary conveyor belt of talent that they have in the Netherlands. She was in many ways in the vanguard of it, wasn't she? And they just seem to churn out rider after rider of huge ability, and it just, I suppose, success breeds success in many ways, in the way that it's been in Britain over recent years, particularly on the track. The popularity of the sport just tends to That rising tide lifts all boats, and the standards rise, and to reach the top in the Netherlands, you've really got to be a top rider. And that was two of the all-time greats really going toe-to-toe.